Number 10. Breaking the fourth wall. With Sam Raimi's Spider-Man popping up in graffiti art in the trailer for Morbius, many fans have wondered if we'll ever get to return to that world that died with the third movie. Talk of Spider-Man 3 has also inspired fans to reflect on the film, and one Redditor even came up with a theory that actually makes the film more watchable, with all of its strange showboating moments. Film Nerd 14 suggested that both Venom and Spidey in the movie know that they are in a movie, and as such they are working to break that fourth wall, reaching right out to the audience and attempting to be more entertaining because they know it's a movie. Any theory for me that attempts to dive back into Spider-Man 3 is a scary one, especially when it implies if we ever see a melding of these worlds, we could end up with a weird, self-aware, fourth wall breaking Tobey Maguire Spider-Man again in the future. I'm cool with Tobey Maguire being Spider-Man, but I don't know about the fourth wall breaking. I feel like that might be too much for me. No more finger guns, please. Number 9. Polly Spider? Peter Parker has always been oddly lucky when it comes to the number and qualities of ladies he's had hanging off of his arm over the years. Of course, his relationships do have a tendency to end in heartbreak, so he's not as lucky there. But that's what happens when you have to keep major secrets from your partner. Like, you know, that you're a masked vigilante spider power possessing superhero. Still, he's managed to have relationships with two of the hottest ladies in comics, Mary Jane Watson and Felicia Hardy, aka the Black Cat. Now with issue 5 of Marvel's Spider-Man: The Black Cat Strikes, it's even been implied that there's the potential of a poly relationship blossoming between the three, as both Felicia and MJ express some serious liking of one another. Serious liking. The scary thing here is that there is still a lot of jealousy between the two ladies, so a polyamorous relationship happening between Peter, MJ, and Felicia could lead to more heartbreak than ever before. Still a lot of jealousy there. Although there is some respect, so maybe it'll work out in the future. Number 8. Spider-Man: The Dark Webslinger returns. Recently, artist Hayden Sherman took to Twitter to share some artwork that allows fans to imagine a Spider-Man story told in the vein of Frank Miller's Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. Sherman blends the fight between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin at the end of Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film with the dark and gritty tones of the Dark Knight Returns story, and the few panels we see are stunning and moving. This might be a darker take than we normally see on Spider-Man, but I for one would be super down for a Spider-Man story like this to pop up in my comic shop. I would buy it. I personally would buy it. Sherman himself offered to draw an entire trilogy plus the 4th unmade film should Marvel want to hire him. And to that I say, Marvel, what are you waiting for? As he reminded everyone, the 20th anniversary is coming up for those films. Number 7. KRAVEN the Hunter. Many speculate that KRAVEN the Hunter will make an appearance in the 3rd installment of the Spider-Man films from the MCU. Tom Holland has already expressed that he would be on board and would be interested in seeing KRAVEN enter the MCU. We also have already had a character pop in with ties to him. Did you spot him? Dmitry Smirdyakov, while not confirmed as the Chameleon yet, could be the villain that we know him to be in the comics, and turn out to also be the half-brother of KRAVEN as well in the MCU. Because yeah, Chameleon's the half-brother of KRAVEN, in case you didn't know. Giving us a lead into his character and maybe opening up the potential of the two working together to capture or defeat Spider-Man. Many have also considered that rather than go with the famous Last Hunt storyline, which while brilliant in comic form may not translate as well to film, that KRAVEN could have a tie to Wakanda, and that the herbs from Wakanda are somehow tied into what grants him his power, similar to his comic book powers origins. Although he's not taking herbs from Wakanda, but I mean he could be in the MCU. Number 6. Venom tie-in. Many have conferred that Sony's Venom and MCU Spider-Man will never meet, due to those who produce them. I mean, if they could have done, I'm sure Sony would have loved to have Peter in their Venom film alongside Brock, as let's be honest, having a Venom movie without Spider-Man is it's kinda weird, especially when it's an origins film. So you've got a suit mimicking Spidey's abilities, but there's no Spider-Man. However, some have suggested that we could still see a comic plot like Maximum Carnage make its way to the big screen, as the two films could actually be set in the same universe. What? The Marvel Cinematic Universe is said to be in Earth 199999, while Venom's universe has yet to have a confirmed alternate Earth number. The only thing you can actually find for the Venom film alternate is a temporal reality number as a placeholder, and even that's hard to find. However, we have gotten a couple Easter eggs that could be used to connect Venom to the MCU. At the beginning of the Venom film, we learned about an astronaut who crash landed, John Jameson, aka John Jonah Jameson III, JJ's son, and in the MCU, we see JJ at the end of the Spider-Man film. once again played by Simmons, so good! The Jameson family existence could be the proof that these worlds are actually one in the same. Bring on the maximum carnage! Or don't. We'll see what happens. Number 5. Ned's fate. Many think that Ned and Peter have become too good of BFFs in the MCU for Ned to escape a deadly fate. Usually when Peter has people that he really cares about, a lot of them end up in danger and some of them end up dying in the comics. This could either mean in Spider-Man 3 that we might see Ned end up dead, or we may even see the far from home predictions for his character come true, and see him transform into Hobgoblin, becoming closer to his comic book counterpart. Number 4. Kingpin and Daredevil. It's hard to keep a crime boss behind bars for long in the comics due to their amount of connections. They got a lot of connections, which is what some might be thinking when it comes to the Kingpin getting locked away in the Spider-Man PS4 game. Kingpin goes on to promise as he's locked away that the city will be wishing they had him back within a month. And as the game ends with the city being somewhat submerged into chaos, he may just be right. Others have hoped that we may also get to see some other superheroes cameo in the sequel to the game. And if Kingpin does return, who better to make an appearance than Daredevil, the protector of the New York neighborhood known as Hell's Kitchen. Granted, I'm not quite sure if more heroes would even be able to join, since there's still the issue of character rights. Studio ownership is just ruining all of our mashup fun. Stop it. Stop it. Stop fighting over these guys. I want all of them. I want all of them in one game. Not a fighting game. An adventure RPG. Number 3. Spider-Man dies. As we discussed previously, it's likely that Tom Holland's third Spider-Man film could be his last. So that begs the question, how will Spider-Man exit the MCU? Spider-Man is one of Marvel's biggest properties, but the character could live on in alternate versions, which could be brought into the fold later. Probably through Sony though, as they seem pretty intent on building their own Spider-Verse, one that they hope will rival Disney's massive Marvelverse that they created with the Avengers franchise. If Disney really wanted to give Holland Spidey a finite goodbye, it's possible we could see the character not just retire, but die in that final film, exiting the Marvel and Disney universe forever, with a new alternate Spider-Man such as Miles Morales, Ghost Spider, or Jessica Drew stepping in to take over the future films. Or who knows, Jackpot in some weird capacity, since there's been rumors about that. Number 2. Spider-Man will be forced to kill. Spider-Man doesn't kill often, but every now and then we've seen his alternates forced to do so, and even main continuity Spider-Man forced to do so. In the alternate universe of Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, he was forced to take out an enemy who he's recently actually been very friendly with, as a matter of fact, Venom. And this isn't the only time Spider-Man has killed, although he obviously often tries to avoid doing so when possible. With a few films on the horizon set in and around Spidey's world and villains, some of them being pretty great threats like Carnage, it is possible we could see one of these horrific scenarios come to the big screen, and we could even see Spider-Man turn to the darker side as a result, or become really depressed, which he's really good at doing in the comics. Number 1. Absolute Carnage. People have theorized that with the new Venom 2 film on its way, we won't just be seeing a throwback to the origins of Carnage as we know in the comics, but instead we'll be seeing the Maximum Carnage storyline where Cletus first starts wreaking havoc in the Marvel Universe, blended with a more recent and even more terrifying Carnage story, Donny Cates' Absolute Carnage, and with that story, potentially the introduction of Null as well. While the prospect of expanding and exploring Venom's cosmic heritage so deep so early on seems far-fetched, the Absolute Carnage storyline was well received and well loved, so it is possible we could be shooting past Maximum and heading straight for Absolute when it comes to Carnage level in terms of where Venom 2's story will take us.
And at 10, 8 Aunt May and Mary Jane. Okay, so technically this is Spider-Man, but it's a zombie version of Spider-Man, but I'm gonna count it anyway because this is pretty damn messed up, zombie or not. On Earth 2149, an alien plague ends up infecting all superpowered individuals and turns them into zombies. However, it's later revealed that the Necronomicon from Evil Dead was actually what caused it. But after learning that the plague was actually like a bad thing, Peter ran home to get Aunt May and MJ the hell out of Dodge. But when he gets there, we get a good old case of protagonist syndrome and boom! Zombie Spider. He ends up becoming a zombie and eats the two most important people in his life. He also had a fractured jaw before becoming a zombie, so I'm sure you can imagine that this isn't a pretty sight, even by zombie standards. It may not be RP, but it was a version of Spider-Man, so it's fine. And at 9, Anna Marconi. Speaking of a version of Spider-Man, let's discuss the Superior Spider-Man and his fascination with Anna Marconi. Superior Spider-Man is actually Otto Octavius, who prior to the Superior Spider-Man storyline had brain swapped with Peter, yet a piece of Peter still remained in his own body, which convinced Otto to end up becoming a hero, albeit a darker one. Doc Ock was up to some really shady stuff while pretending to be Peter, cause you know, since Peter is young, handsome, in shape, and has actual women in his life, Otto tried his luck at getting MJ to sleep with him, but failed miserably. So, you know, things weren't going that well. But then there's Anna Marconi, whom this Otto-Peter hybrid started dating. She had no idea what the real situation was going on inside that noggin, and while it's unclear if they ever actually hopped on the good foot and did the bad thing, it's obvious that things were at least heading in that direction. Otto was in love with her, which was a surprise since he even decided to give Peter back his body to save her. But it was still an absolutely horrific story, immoral, in the highest class of the word. It's creepy as hell and it makes me rethink all relationships. And at 8, interfered with surgery. In the same series as the Anna Marconi situation, the small bit of Peter that was left in his body was trying to regain control, for obvious reasons, because, you know, a super villain was piloting his bone mech with meat armor. This small bit of Peter though was at times able to interfere or even control Otto temporarily. One of these moments came in Superior Spider-Man number 8, where there was a device that was capable of wiping Pete from Otto's brain, but to get it he had to perform surgery on a little girl. However, Peter didn't think that Otto could do it, so he tries to stop Otto from even performing the surgery, while he has his Spider-Man mask on, may I add, and an additional face mask, so if evil Spider-Man can do it, so can you. Even still, trying to prevent the surgery to save a little girl's life is a pretty low moment for the Barnacle, even if it was filled with good intentions. Kind of. Those only power crystals, you know. Actually, is that how it works? I don't know. I don't think like Topaz is going to cure my depression or something.
Number 7, Kindred reveal. With issue 850 or 49 of The Amazing Spider-Man delayed, many are expecting because it has that legacy number, it might be a huge issue. We already know that Norman Osborn will be returning to his more classic role as Green Goblin after spending some time thinking he was Cletus Cassidy due to him merging with Carnage and becoming the Red Goblin previously. That's right, finally Norman will be going from red back to green again. But we are also hoping as Kindred appears on the cover that we will also be seeing more of the mysterious new villain, who we still don't know who he is. Sorry, I got too excited and then I lost my place. But we are also hoping as Kindred appears on the cover that we will also be seeing more of this new mysterious villain. Who is Kindred? And perhaps even find out just whose face is hiding under that hood and mask. Number 6. Who is Kindred? Speaking of the great horrific Kindred reveal, the question still remains, who is Kindred? Many people seem to be jumping on board with the idea that it's likely either some form of Harry Osborn or some form of Gwen Stacy, just based on what we've discovered and what Kindred says in the latest issues of The Amazing Spider-Man. The constant reference to Kindred's vengeance being a family affair that is discussed with Norman at Ravencroft implies Harry. Kindred says that when Norman regains his sense of self, they'll once again be one big happy family. But at the end of issue 43, we learn the next comic is to be called The Sins of ... which is likely a reference to the Spider-Man stories Sins of the Father. Sins of the Father was the story that revealed that Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy had children together. Ew, but also important, because it could be a hint. Number 5. Sinister 6. A few months back, Sony announced an untitled Sony Marvel project that fans could be expecting to see released on October 8th of 2021. Of course, due to the global crisis still being in effect, it is likely this project will get delayed and pushed back. However, many still pondered at exactly what the project could be. The interesting thing is that it would be releasing about a year after their original release date for Venom 2, and that time would also have been only a few months after the original release date for Spider-Man 3, set to release originally in July 2021. We know the film was also said to be something that would expand Sony's Spider-Verse, which has led many to hope, especially with Morbius slated to be released in the nearish future, that this film we could be seeing as early as next year could be the long-awaited Sinister 6 film. Squee! Number 4. The last Spider-Man film. The MCU Spider-Man films could be coming to a close. We almost didn't get a third film as negotiations between Sony and Disney froze up before finally being resolved. Whew, thank goodness. Considering how difficult it was for the two to come to some kind of agreement last time, it is possible that the next time Sony will be unwilling to loan Disney and Marvel the rights, and that Disney simply will refuse to pay Sony's high price, which they deem ridiculous. Many have therefore theorized that this could be the last Spider-Man film from the MCU that we'll be getting, and that Sony, rather than try to take over the Tom Holland Spider-Man stories, will either reboot and recast again or introduce an entirely new Spider-Man. They could even just make Venom the center of their live-action Spider-Verse, which would be a little weird, but I don't know if I'd hate it.
Getting close to the end into number 3, One Moment in Time. The One Moment in Time story comes after the One More Day story, and this seems to be the storyline that No Way Home is taking inspiration from. However, after saving Aunt May, Wilson Fisk ends up sending a hitman after MJ's Aunt Anna Watson, but the hitman, revealed to be Eddie Brock, ends up attacking Mary Jane. Peter takes the wounded MJ to Doctor Strange, who heals her, but Peter also insists that Doctor Strange performs a spell that causes everyone to forget that he's Spider-Man, because again, not living with the consequences of his actions. Strange contacts Iron Man and Mr. Fantastic for advice, and they end up agreeing with him eventually. They do, however, decide that nobody should remember who Peter is aside from Peter. Not Doctor Strange, not Tony, not Mr. Fantastic, not MJ. But Peter, being Peter, jumps out of his protective bubble and grabs MJ and pulls her in before the spell is complete. They wake up in a motel and Peter explains what happened. Mary Jane asks why he couldn't just let her forget, and then she explains that she can't be with him because it's only a matter of time before somebody rips off his mask again and they go after her family, and that's a danger that she can't let happen. Back in the present though, Mary Jane also explains that he has to move on and find somebody who can be with him. Should've just let her forget it, man. Penultimately, into number 2, Hit Mary Jane. To get things straight, I understand that finding out that you're actually a clone and that the real Peter Parker has been living his life for the past few years as Ben Reilly because he thought he was the clone would be pretty earth-shattering, but nonetheless it doesn't excuse this behavior. You may be under a lot of stress, but you never hit or take it out on your partner in any way whatsoever. No matter what gender you are or aren't, you just don't, okay? But Peter didn't get that memo for a minute, since in the Clone Wars storyline after finding this out, Peter and Ben are in the middle of a scrap. Mary Jane admittedly doesn't make the brightest move though when she attempts to break the two up, but Peter instinctively backhands her across the room, a moment we see referenced in Spider-Man 3 in the cafe that MJ works at. However, in the comic, Mary Jane was actually currently pregnant with his child, and while Peter does instantly regret this and is filled with shame and guilt, he runs away. He doesn't check on his pregnant wife. He flees and joins up with Jackal, so yeah, not the finest moment there, dude.
Number 10, Vulture plus Mysterio equals plots? Okay, so Quentin Beck would have likely known about Stark Tech since he used to work for him, like his all-powerful device, Edith. And if he didn't, he'd probably know someone who knew about it and wanted to help him since Tony has so many enemies. But how did Beck know about Peter? Now you could argue that the information was given to him via Fury, but I would think he'd have to have known before that to determine that the threat would be close enough to have Parker brought in, which implies that he knew it before he even met Spider-Man and knew who he was. Now he could have acquired this info through a leak in Tony's armor, haha, see what I did there? Someone who worked for him but who maybe knew and wanted to share that they knew Spider-Man's secret identity for some reason. Once again, could have been Tony's enemy. I'm pretty sure Tony though would have kept a secret like that far more guarded than any of his others. There is a more frightening option, that Mysterio somehow got the info out of Vulture, who knows Spidey's identity but so far has appeared to keep it to himself. If Mysterio knew that Edith would likely be passed down to Spidey, he could have been working to build up connections with Spider-Man's enemies in an attempt to get information on him. Are they connected? I don't know. Number 8. Happy becomes Doc Ock. So for us to have a Sinister Six, there is someone we would sorely need, Doc Ock. While Vulture, Mysterio, Electro, and Scorpion have been introduced as Spidey villains, we still have yet to see some of the most iconic Spider-Man villains, like Chameleon, Doc Ock, Sandman, or Green Goblin. While some have speculated that Happy is intended to replace Uncle Ben and end up with Aunt May, it seems more likely that Tony Stark was supposed to step into a surrogate version of his uncle's role. This is highlighted by the fact that Tony died and left a wealth of responsibility to Peter as Iron Man's superhero heir, in a sense. Happy has access to Tony's tech, has a good relationship with Peter that is just begging to be turned sour, and has a thing for Aunt May, all signs that could be pointing to him becoming Doc Ock. But wait a minute, Doc Ock didn't have a relationship with Aunt May, except for that time when he tried to marry her. Dun dun dun. Okay, I know that was a ploy to like get a nuclear power plant, but still, I'm counting it. There was chemistry, I saw it in their eyes.
And in 7, scarring Harry Osborn. While Spider-Man 3 in and of itself is one of the most despicable things that Spider-Man has done, well, with the exception of that sweet dance scene, one of the most horrible things actually in the movie is during the final fight between Harry and Peter. Peter shows up at Harry's house wearing the black symbiote costume and is mad about Goblin Jr. being the reason that MJ left Peter. However, this fight is about more than that, since Harry still blames Peter for killing his father, and Peter is done trying to convince him. After wailing on him a little bit, Peter kicks Harry into the path of a rogue glider, sending him flying into a shelf of good old-fashioned pumpkin bombs. After some mental torment, he knocks Harry out against the wall, at least so he thinks. But in fact, Harry is awake, and as Peter is walking away, Harry decides to chuck a pumpkin bomb at Pete, who dodges it thanks to his spider sense, but then thanks to the symbiote throws it back at Harry, causing it to explode basically right next to his face. If it weren't for the Goblin Serum, Harry would definitely be dead, and honestly, even with it, I'm surprised that he survived. But you do have to admit, it was pretty damn cold, but Harry also did kind of deserve it. And in 4, sold his marriage. After siding with Tony in the events of the first Civil War, Spider-Man has to reveal his identity to the world in order to continue fighting crime. And you know, since now every supervillain on Earth knows how to get to Spider-Man, Kingpin ends up attacking Peter at his home. He dodges the bullets, but they end up hitting Aunt May instead, putting her in critical condition. This is the start of the One More Day storyline, probably the most universally hated Spider-Man run of all time. Since in order to save Aunt May, Peter talks to Mephisto and ends up selling his marriage to MJ in order to save his aunt. So their entire marriage will get erased so that he can have at least one more day with his aunt. Aside from living with the consequences of your actions, because you know, that's not what heroes do. Which is also pretty goddamn horrible. You wanna know what else is pretty goddamn horrible? Like, MJ had to agree to it as well, or at least she had to say that she did. But like, seriously, if you're being realistic, okay, how many years does Aunt May really have left? Okay, like, honestly, not many. So selling your marriage to bring back your one foot in the grave aunt just seems like a not so even trade to me. I'm just saying. MJ's gonna be around for longer. You heard it right, ladies. I'd let my old aunt die for you. Hit me up.
Number 3, never left. We're gonna go Matrix on this one. So, what if Peter is still stuck in Mysterio's illusion and never escaped it? Dun dun dun! Well, this seems unlikely. It wouldn't be the first time that Marvel took us on a wild ride, especially while compared to the comics. And how would we know that everything around him is actually real? The level of virtual reality Beck was able to produce seemed to be insane. It's completely possible that he just has Parker kidnapped on some kind of soundstage and is making him think everything is fine while he fools the world into thinking that he himself, Mysterio, is actually a hero. And then, you know, maybe Spider-Man's missing. Who knows? Number 1, Gobnom/Venlin? In the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man game, fans are treated to an end credit scene that is sure to blow off their socks when it is revealed that the Venom symbiote is being used to keep Harry in stasis. We see Norman rest his hand on his son's tank, where he can be seen floating, and see the tendrils of the symbiote reaching back. What does this mean? Many are thinking that we may get to see some insane hybrid of Green Goblin serum and the symbiote together when Harry emerges, and that may be how he recovers, or that his transformation may simply be a result of Norman's desperate but mad attempt to somehow save his son. The closest we've ever seen to something like this would be with Red Goblin, Norman armed with the deadly combo of Carnage and Goblin, and that was already pretty terrifying, so I guess we'll see, but that would be awesome.